Windows and Xbox are getting new features, and I don't know if you're going to love them. Happy Friday, friends. It is Friday. Somehow it's the end of March. The grass is growing, which makes me happy. It means I got to go cut it. And spring is officially upon us. That means things like Build. We have Apple's WWDC. Google has I/O. There's a whole bunch of things starting to happen. While there's not E3 on the gaming side, there are typically a lot of gaming announcements leading up to the June timeline. And so there is a lot to dive into. So hopefully everybody here had a wonderful week. Let's dive into the tech news. Here we go. Microsoft is now deploying Outlook, the new Outlook, for everybody on Microsoft 365. So if you don't like it, good luck. Microsoft doesn't really care at this point. But on the Windows side, there's really a lot to talk about on the Windows side, and I suspect/hope this is meaning things leading up to Microsoft Build here, which is in a few, maybe more than a few short weeks. But however, there is a new roadmap, so this is a big deal, right? Microsoft for years has been shipping things all over the place, and candidly, I think it is probably impossible for you to look at a laptop and determine when a feature will arrive on it. I honestly think it's impossible, because if you could say, well, Brad, if they're in Canary, they're just going to get it all. Not really, because they could be in an A/B test. And depending on the region, depending on if they have a Copilot plus PC. And so the riddle of trying to understand what devices are eligible for what features is a thing that is impossible to solve. Microsoft is trying to improve this with this new roadmap page that shows different things and features and functionality, and it's a first stab at it. My pessimism is going to come out here pretty heavy, because it's probably only a matter of time before this thing is either forgotten about or just outdated or whatever. I'm hoping it's all automated on the back end, and if there's any manual process to any part of this, it will eventually break. So I don't know enough about the Windows build infrastructure that if they can in theory, they should be able to tie all these features together in their location. A PM should be managing all this. It's a lofty goal. It's a lofty ambition, and it is what it is. But at least it's a start. So there you go. Now, speaking of features coming here, so there's new AI search experiences coming to Copilot Plus PCs with a caveat I will add, because actually I am now the owner of a proud user of a Copilot Plus PC. However, it is the Intel variant. So when things come to Copilot Plus PCs with the caveat, they really mean Snapdragon Copilot Plus PCs. It will eventually be coming to Intel devices that have NPUs, but there's new semantic search experiences, things that we all sort of thought were coming, right? Like the ability to search within a photo, so you could say dog on the beach, and the file name might not be dog on the beach, but it knows that there's a dog on the beach, so it's going to surface that stuff up. So these things are going to be very slowly starting to roll out, which, by the way, I'm now using. And I say using, I am letting Recall do its thing on my Copilot Plus PC. It's a thing. I haven't candidly found a use for it yet, if I'm completely transparent. I've had it, I don't know, for a week or whatever. Now, the reality here is that my brain is not wired for the new search paradigms that are unlocked by AI. Meaning, my brain knows if I need something, I have a certain way of searching for things on my PC, which is how I save files, which makes things discoverable, which makes things usable. I'm sure Copilot Plus PC recall experiences will be useful at some point, and for a particular demographic who may not have grown up in a world of indexes and SEO gamification. But for right now, my brain still noodles around basically a SQL query at the end of the day. If you're familiar with that context, you probably understand what I mean. So there you go. Microsoft is also bringing something to Windows, which I don't think is new, but they're calling it Office 365 Startup Boost. Now, this is a performance suppository that will be inserted into your install of Windows if you have any Office apps available. And what it does is it basically preloads it, like when you start up with Edge, right? Edge is you may not want Edge running, but Edge is running when you boot up your machine. That way it loads faster and has a better experience for the end user. Now, they're going to do this eventually for all Office apps. I believe they're starting with Word. Here's the thing. You can turn this off, because when people talk about Windows bloat, This is probably like a premier example of like what is Windows bloat. It's like this, right? You installed Office, but you don't want it loading up every time you restart your computer because that just makes the startup experience, means it's using cache. Now granted, someone will make the arguments like that's what Windows is supposed to do. It's supposed to do all this in the background, Brad, and that's how they make things better for them, fast, blah, 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 blah. Fine, you can make that argument. My argument is that it's your device. You should be able to have complete control over what resources are being used and when, and especially for people who like to tinker, Office Startup Boost is going to be a real pain in the butt. Here's why. Because, first off, it's going to be, I believe, enabled by default, and you can disable this. This is a scheduled task. It is in this task scheduler. You can go look at your task scheduler right now and see everything that is scheduled to run at some point or another time or whatever. However, if you turn this off in the task scheduler, next time Office updates, it will be turned back on, and good luck. And so, yeah, that's the real annoying part. Microsoft has had this stuff around, I want to say since like those low budget, like Atom processor era devices to help things feel a little bit snappier. I mean, it's a pseudoscience. You're still wasting the same amount of time. It's just doing it in the background, which is, I guess, with today's devices that have more cores and more CPU threads and everything else, that maybe it's not as impactful, but whatever, like, if you don't want this running at startup, good luck. Microsoft wishes you well, and that is that. Microsoft Photos is also getting JXL support, which is an open, royalty-free design format to improve upon JPEG, so Windows Photos now supports that. Also, Microsoft here is killing OneNote for Windows 10. That is the official end of an era. It's the Windows 10 version of OneNote that they kind of popped out as like going to be like the premier example of what OneNote and like a UWP and a modern app could be, and then they abandoned it because they realized people weren't migrating and it wasn't really working, and all the lofty dreams and things that they had outlined that weren't really lining up to reality. Also, other things to note, Apple's WWDC is kicking off June 9th, which will be an interesting thing for people who use iPhones and all that good stuff. We're supposed to see a new iOS with a complete design overhaul, and so, yeah. All right. On to the game. Oh, we're not even to the questions yet, but I realized I just forgot to pull them up before we get to the gaming news. Let me do that while I try to multitask, which goes terribly when you have something running like this. So I could edit all this out, you say, Brad, but why would I want to do that as I try to find that thread? I keep clicking the wrong thing here. Okay, let's go. Forums, visit forums. I tweet this out and put it on Blue Sky, and people ask questions there. But yes, so let's see here. That way, when we get over to the questions, there's quite a few this week. We didn't record last week. This is a nice, brief little intermission. I didn't record last week. I was traveling, last minute travel, and just couldn't. It's not gonna happen. So, anyways, after that brief little intermission here, let's dive into the gaming news. So, first things first, Microsoft is bringing a feature to Xbox. Now, this is like they call it a hub. And so you can see it here. This was recorded by Scully and he posted it up. And so that little hub experience right there, it shows you data and everything else. Now, the thing that people are going to lose their mind over here, and which rightfully so, and this falls in line with that Office speed boost I talked about earlier, is this feature makes you click A twice now, right? Previously, you would hover over your game, hit A, and it would launch your title. Now, you're going to hover over your title, hit A, it launches, shows you information about it that you may or may not want to see, and then you've got to do it again. Now, the question is, why is Microsoft doing this? Well, they're presenting more information, kind of cool context data stuff, and people might like that, and so I totally get that. And by the way, you can turn this one off, unlike Speed Boost. However, there's also the available add-ons. So to me, like, I don't want to call it an ad, but like there's things in here where they can show things that might sell for more money, and like, right, you can see how that's all chained together. So you can turn it off. We'll call it a chaotic neutral update because it's chaotic because it's changing the experience on how you launch games, quite literally. Someone will say, no, Brad, no, it's not. But like, you went from having it, you have to hit A twice as many times. Now, granted, you could just double tap it, but it's like, why? And why can't we turn off? The time would have been better spent if we could have turned off quick launch, it's quick launch. Or game instant resuming. It's quick launch, right? I can't think of it. Because that doesn't work for Call of Duty, the premier title for Activision and probably Xbox Studios at this point. It doesn't work. It does not work for online games. So maybe let us turn that off rather than launching hubs. That aside. Minecraft is getting not the ray tracing update that we all remember that they never launched. They announced but never launched, but the vibrant visuals update. So it's going to make things, how did they describe this? They said, this is what you, in your brain, when you think about Minecraft, this is what you imagine, and like that's what they're trying to do. It's just higher improved fidelity. And I'm not complaining about the update. It's just more of every time they do a visual update, we're all like, hey, remember that ray tracing update you guys promised that never shipped? And then here we are. Other hardware coming. This is, I don't think it's official hardware, but it's officially licensed hardware. So Backbone, which I have one of these devices around here somewhere, not this particular device that is on the display, but this is a new controller. Like, turn your phone into a Nintendo Switch for people who are on the audio only side, and your phone slaps right in the middle. Now, they didn't have it. I don't believe until this version, it didn't work with USB-C iPhones. Now, USB-C iPhones are supported with this device. It just, slaps the controllers on each side, then allows you to play your Xbox games as you know and love, with that sort of off-centered design for the thumbsticks. So it's a device, if you are a heavy mobile gamer, this is probably certainly something that would be of your interest, especially if you aren't wanting to shell out for something like an ROG Ally or any of the many other Xbox-style devices that are more dedicated. A phone is certainly capable hardware, and so yeah, that thing is available. It's over $100 though. So keep that in mind, but that's what it is. Also, there's a rather impressive March update for Xbox, the dashboard update as we sometimes call it, but this reaches far beyond dashboard. So the PC game bar, so I'm just calling it the Xbox March update, is getting a visual overhaul, which is sorely needed. It was pretty much stuck maybe in the Windows 10 quasi Windows 8 style era of design, maybe more Windows 10. But either way, they've updated. I think it looks a lot better. They've got graphs and widgets and things that everybody loves. And so that will be rolling out here if it's not already on your device. There's also new benefits, if you will. If you are paying for Game Pass, when you log in or check out the Xbox app, you'll find new perks and those free-to-play games trying to get you and entice you back in. And also, this one's really perplexing to me for a couple reasons here. So, you can now seamlessly shift between games on Xbox Cloud Gaming, is how they refer to this. But there's more caveats to this than the caveat word in the dictionary, if that analogy even made sense. So what this allows you to do, this feature is first off currently only available with Assassin's Creed Valhalla, or I should say, that's what's shown on the display, Assassin's Creed Shadows, and will be extended to additional cloud playable games soon. However, what this allows you to do, from my brief understanding, because I don't have it on my device yet, is that it allows you to switch games faster without having to go all the way back. However, the text that they used made it sound like you can only switch between Assassin's Creed games instantly, not every game that you might have. So to me, I wonder if like part of the bargaining between Microsoft and the developers behind Assassin's Creed was like, hey, we'll support this feature, but if you're going to let people jump between games, it can only be games that we make. We don't want them jumping out into Forza because that doesn't do us any good. And so, yeah, I suspect that might be a developer-driven scenario, because at the end of the day, Microsoft even goes on to say that some of the titles that you could jump between, you may not own, which means you would then have to buy them, which means that companies are making money. And so that becomes another lead gen is what we would typically refer to it in the industry, but this is like a little more like down the funnel. So it's not even lead gen, I guess, something else. But yeah, so that one's a little interesting about like, what's the true narrative behind this? Now, in the back of my brain, I'm also still thinking about that Xbox hardware, that handheld device that is supposedly coming this year, that is not an Xbox device, but has an Xbox branding on it, or Xbox backed in some capacity when we find out all those details, and how all of these things that we're hearing about are going to play into that piece of hardware launching in 2020. Now, we got a bunch of questions, as if you were watching earlier on the podcast, that I stumbled through trying to find the thread. So, Mr. PKI, kicking it off here with a couple different questions. I have newest first. Here we go. So, Mr. PKI says, everyone is confused with the new Outlook. The big question remains, will that replacement replace the full original Outlook that you buy with an Office license, or is that slowly going away? I think we have to assume that the old is going away. Microsoft has a rich history of just pushing things out. OneNote was kind of in that category at one point, which we saw how that played out over time. But my advice would be everybody should get happy and helpful and lovey and warm feelings about the new Microsoft 365 Outlook, whatever new beta version that they have on your taskbar, because that is the future, and Microsoft has made it pretty clear, heads down, buried in the sand, that is going to be their future. Doesn't really matter. Mr. PKI says, what is going on with the new Microsoft performance review system? Any insider stories on that? Any insider stories? So there's cuts happening at Microsoft, and it doesn't seem like it's always necessarily related to your performance review. There are many threads across many different social media platforms talking about how, hey, I got very high performance reviews, but was still cut. And so there was a narrative out earlier, what was it, in January, I want to say, where it was like, hey, Microsoft said, look, yeah, there's always layoffs or cuts happening, and it was just low performers. But on the various threads of Blind and Reddit, and you can find them on Facebook or wherever else, people have been cut who had high performance ratings. So yeah. And Mr. PKI with his last question of the week, going with a triple dose, a triple triage. I don't know. It says, we're still waiting for the Indiana Jones and Great Circle review. Yeah. I haven't played it. I haven't completed it yet. I need to. I know. Here we go. Anyways, Codgart says, Brad, he says a non-Microsoft question, but he says, with the hype of the Nintendo Switch 2, are you planning on getting one, and what games are you hoping for? Ooh, I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to get a Switch 2. Like, I never bought a Switch. I'm absolutely sure that there are games on there. Any of the Mario games look amazing. Mario Galaxy games all have looked amazing. Any Zelda Link story novels, even spin-offs of that stuff is usually right up my alley. The problem is I just don't know when I would use it. Typically, I would play those things on a plane, but thankfully, I don't travel nearly as much. And when I do travel, I'm with my family. And so I don't want to share the Switch 2 with my daughter is what I'm trying to say. I'm not sure. I will see. I hesitate to say. Well, first off, I'm not getting one at launch because that's going to be insane, and there's going to be no way I'm even going to get my dirty little mitts on one. But either way, Kagart says, second question, if Steam comes to Xbox, what's the incentive to buy games on the Xbox store? Microsoft would lose revenue since players could buy on Steam and play across Xbox, PC, and Steam Deck. Well, the incentive is going to continue to be, and I fundamentally believe this, Game Pass. I think that is going to be Microsoft's go-forward incentive. But you are right. If you have Steam available on a traditional Xbox console, what is the benefit? Well, some of the benefit would also be the Xbox Live integration. You got to remember that for console peasants like myself who like to sit down and play an Xbox Series X and play games, the whole Xbox Live experience, being able to just, jump around between titles, the invitation system, the achievements or whatever, I don't really achievement hunt too much anymore. But the notification platform and the ability to save clips and everything else, that is an incentive for people who like that. Not to mention if you already have a library in one place, that is also another incentive. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out as he quotes dodgeball there at the end of his question. It's a very fair question here, but part of me just continues to wonder, like, Steam integration and Steam accessing games are two very different things. Like, if you're playing a single player title, a Steam title is of value, but I would still continue to buy things through the Xbox store just because that's where I've always bought them, and those ingrained tentacles of my library in one place is of significant value. And I do have Steam titles. I don't think I would jump to PlayStation by any means because of this. Like, weird people are saying, like, wow, you can get Steam on this console. I'm gonna buy a PlayStation. Like, and then there's the other side of it. It's like, well, PlayStation already puts their games on Steam, so then can you play PlayStation games on your Xbox? And then there's another argument. It's like, well, PlayStation would just block that. And it's like, well, will Steam allow that? Is it technically possible? How does it know it's an Xbox? You can spoof your MAC address. Like, that's not hard to do. And so it's an interesting thought. It really is. Rafik says, he says, with Microsoft's strategy of putting Xbox everywhere, shouldn't there be a focus on working on Xbox emulation? Well, how do we know that there isn't? But so you'll be able to play Xbox consoles natively on a PC, TVs, and mobiles, and everything else. I agree with you. The thing is, the only information we have related to that is a Sarah Bond initiative where she said, I've spun up a team to work on game continuity backwards and I'm assuming forwards as well, so that all your titles are available everywhere on your Xbox platform. That could be the exact same thing without just saying it, right? Like, if you're already doing Xbox emulation like that and thinking about next gen, what is the difference at the end of the day? It's the same thing. So I think that might already be happening. And Rafiq's second question says, Now that the debate is heating up, I want to hear your opinion if Sony could block... Oh, here we go. See, I told you guys. Sony could block PlayStation games on a future potential Steam store on the next Xbox. And if they can't, can Steam block the games on Xbox console without blocking them on their PC store, if Sony asks them? So this is something a bit of a more of a hypothetical by all accounts. So you have to go through a couple different scenarios here. First, can Steam technically do it? All things can be achieved like this if they want to achieve them, right? There are things they could do. Yes. Could they make it a pain in the butt? Sure. Is it going to require development time and effort? And if that's not natively possible right now, which I have no idea if it is Steam going to require Sony to pay for that development? Sure. At the end of the day, does Sony care, right? I mean, this is a whole nother conversation. Does Sony care if an Xbox console user can go to Steam, buy their game, and play it? Does Sony care? They're going to make more money. They have already effectively, I would say Sony is going to continue to lead in the hardware space for the foreseeable future when it comes to direct hardware sales. If Xbox goes to this like multi-device strategy where everything's an Xbox, then it gets a bit more muddied, but it's not Xbox true hardware, if you guys know what I mean. So from Sony's perspective, it's like, look, okay, we're going to continue to sell X millions of consoles. We can make more money by selling this game on Steam. They might just, it would be I would not be surprised if they just plug their ears and say like, yeah, they're playing it on a PC. That's not an Xbox console when we think about like what an Xbox console is. Because again, it goes back to like, does Xbox Live integrate with Steam? No. Does the achievements? No. Is it bought from a Microsoft store? No. So is it an Xbox console like that we traditionally know? My gut says that they will not try to block it because it would just be like, they are literally saying, guys, we know for a fact that more money is made when selling a software title than selling hardware, at least for Sony. I cannot imagine them being in a scenario where they're like, no, we don't want to make more money. Right? And I know it's going to be like, well, it's an Xbox. I'm playing PlayStation. I'm playing Spider-Man on my Xbox. Look at me. Wee! But now you're playing it on a PC. So I don't think Sony is going to block them. Sydney 2K says, a Minecraft movie opens next week. Are you taking your daughter to... My daughter's not into Minecraft, so probably not. Also, I really don't like going to the movies. I don't mind watching movies at home, but like the whole movie experience to me is just people talk and there's just noise and it's just other stuff and whatever else. Maybe we'll watch it when it's available at home. And Efron A says, with the last question of the week, with Microsoft's recent focus on AI advancements, there seems to be this trend that attention to Windows stability and quality has been diminished. I think that's a fair assessment. How does Microsoft plan to balance its AI ambitions with ensuring Windows remains a reliable and high-quality platform for users? I can see the pattern with almost all services and software that Microsoft makes. Yeah, you are correct. So I think the answer here is they don't. They care about their corporate customers. This is why they have all these insider rings to try to flesh all this stuff out. But this stuff is going to get rammed down your throat whether or not you like it. It's like the speed boost suppository that Office is delivering to your task scheduler. Like they just don't care, I think is the reality of it. Microsoft recognizes that these AI agents and future of AI is really dependent on their long-term stability. And so they're going to make sure you find Copilot, you know Copilot, you use Copilot, and that they can tout that you use Copilot. Now the question is, will you pay for any Copilot experiences? I don't know. I pay for ChatGPT Plus, the like $20 a month thing, because I like it. It's fun and it's neat. And yeah, I like that. Although I'm tempted to switch because I've started using Cursor, the Cursor development environment. It's pretty good. And I use Claude. I think it's Claude 3.7 for their premium experience. So I might flip back and forth between the two. I'm not going to pay for multiple Copilots or AI agents. It's just too expensive. And like, I know this is me screwing around. So yeah, it's I'd say buckle up, right? They came out with this roadmap that it's like Microsoft. Here's the thing that's going to frustrate me. So Apple will, at their WWDC in June, will announce a Windows, a Mac update, and like sometime in September or maybe October, they will say, here you go. And then it's just pushed to everybody. And then that's their major update. And they might have a smaller update here or there. Microsoft, on the other hand, is festival seating, which has been banned. where it's like things just fly out everywhere and you have no idea. And that's how I started this podcast, is saying that you cannot look at a device and know what features it's eligible for or might have on it just from looking at it. You might be able to say, Brad, that's not true. It's a Copilot Plus PC. It's got all those features. Well, mine's an Intel Copilot Plus PC and you can't tell what's on it. So there you go. And it's got to be on the canary ring to get all this stuff. So yeah, anyways, crazy stuff. This stuff is fascinating to me to watch how Microsoft is meandering through all this. The Xbox stuff, lots going on. Hopefully all of you had a wonderful week. And as always, my friends, make sure to keep it subscribed here because the only BS on this podcast is me.